Welcome to Slow and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we build products in public. Each week we'll give you an honest peek into our lives as we share our struggles, our wins, and everything in between. I'm Benedict and I'm feeling productive.
I'm Brian. Today is October 12th and I'm feeling hopeful.
And I'm Benedicte, and this is episode number 111, and I'm feeling super inspired because with us today we have special guest Brian Casel, who has sold more businesses than most of us has ever started. Most recently, he sold AudioNops, a done-for-you content service. He's also the man behind the course I regret I did not sign up for 7 years ago, Productize. So how are you feeling today then, Brian? And what is your current focus?
Thank you for having me, y'all. Let's see, how am I feeling today? I'm feeling jittery right now.
Jittery?
Because I'm about an hour after having my coffee, my morning coffee, so getting that energy going.
Cool. Yeah, so you're located in the States then, I guess, since it's morning. I probably should know this, but...
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast. It's 10 a.m. for me, so this is my favorite time of the day to get work done, to do stuff.
Hopefully also to record a podcast.
We're like messing up your productivity time, your focus time.
Well, this would have been perfect. My kids are at school. My wife is out. So I would have had like a perfectly quiet house, except they're banging away on the bathroom that we're remodeling right now. So hopefully that won't be too bad.
No, it's slightly in the background. So I mentioned some of the things you've done. You've done so much more, but what is your current focus?
ZipMessage is that's a SaaS product. I'm really trying to focus all of my effort and time and hours and resources on that. So it's been ZipMessage is a SaaS tool for asynchronous conversations with your team members, with your customers, with your clients, with other freelancers. That's what makes it really different, I think, is that ability to basically just send anybody a link, and then you can just hop right into an asynchronous conversation. They don't need to download or install anything, and even if they don't even need to necessarily register for anything, you could record your messages right into the browser and share a link with anyone. So that's what I've been working on. And as you said, I just exited Audience Ops last month, so that's kind of removed from the picture. You mentioned the Productize course. I mean, that was something that I launched years ago, and it's still around, but it has sort of faded into the background, kind of nearing its end of life, I think, at some point. But
I still regret it though. It's like I saw it again now, and I'm like, why didn't I do that? And I was looking at it 7 years ago. I was like, oh, but it's too big of an investment. And now I like laugh at myself. Like that would not have been too big of an investment.
Well, I always do a Black Friday sale on it, and that's coming up, next month. Ooh. And I think I might do like one final Black Friday thing to make it low priced.
Yeah, somebody is joining.
This is the last time.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be sure to link to it then in the description. But what did you do? So we usually do like a little summary of what we've done. Have you done anything specific on ZipMessage this week?
Actually, just today, just this morning, we launched a new feature for tags and filtering on your conversations. So now, like when you have a lot of conversations in your account, which they do accumulate over time, now you can apply tags to them for better organization. And then now that you have tags, we gave you a way to like filter your long list of conversations by tag or by who was in the conversations with you. And if you have multiple accounts, you can filter by that as well. So happy to that was one of those features that I think makes it a lot better for users. We've had that request, but like I really wanted that for my ZipMessage account. So it's a lot easier.
How long has it been open to other users? Like how long have you been accepting signups and such?
Yeah, so the first users and customers started in April of this year, I believe. So just a couple of months ago, like half a year ago. And up until I forgot when it was. Like I think in August, up until August, it was still in like invite only mode. I was just inviting the early access list every month, and then in August I opened it up to anybody to sign up.
Right on.
What made you decide?
Video, but like the sun is like bouncing off my desk right now.
No, it's all good. I want to really dig in, and Benedict has got some awesome questions queued up. Real quick, let's just go around the horn and follow up on like what Brian's been focused on. Benedicte, what was your focus this week? What have you been knocking
Is that
out?
me? Is the Benedicte?
Oh yeah, Queen Ray.
Yeah?
Sorry, Queen Ray. Yeah.
I was actually.
So we've got two Benedicts and two Brians.
And two Brians, yes.
And,
I mean, if you want to be a guest on our
Benedicte,
show,
yeah.
it's gotta be a B name. Like,
Yep.
And I mean Benedicte. I mean Benedicte Ray. Like she just got them both. I was telling them before we started recording that I told my daughter that we've got a guest, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, is their name Dika?" Like Benedict's last name. I was like, "Well, no, it's Brian." She's like, "You guessed amazing." Anyway.
Yeah, no, so I was on vacation last week, which was quite fun. We rented a van that is converted into like a living van. So channeling a little bit of Brian on our vacation. And it started pouring down the day we left, and it stopped raining the day we came back. And it was like flood warnings in southern Norway. And it's the most rain we've had this year, I think. But we did enjoy ourselves. We went to like a swim park, like with, slides and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. And I didn't win the jammy that everybody had to vote for, but I'm okay.
Yeah. Congrats on being nominated.
Thank you. And now, like, my focus is definitely on trying to get these sales pages and sales going for my November Gatsby function boot camps. So that's like my focus for this week.
Cool.
Benedict?
Yeah, so for me, as I said, I'm feeling productive. I spent most of last week working on batch operations for user lists. So stuff that you can do on all users. First being importing CSV lists. So once we launch the marketing feature, we want people to easily migrate from whatever tool they're using. So I've been working on a CSV import. And I have to say, I love Sidekick, the queuing system we're using, because it comes with a nice batch management thing, and it just works great. Like it was a breeze to build this, and now I'm just polishing the UI a little bit because we need like some field mapping and stuff like that. But it's been a fun exercise, and hope to wrap it up this week.
I always wonder how much time it took the creators of Sidekick to make that text thing in the terminal when you started up, like the guy doing the Sidekick.
That's a good question. I think there are online tools for that, but I'm not sure.
Of course.
So that's the thing I've been working on. This week, I will probably have to work a little bit on performance stuff again. We're again having problems with counting stuff. So, some not so fun stuff coming up. But that's about it. What about you? Brian.
Let's see. Yeah, so I'm yeah, right. Ray. Wait, no.
Brian,
I'm talking to a couple of contractors just about like a few hours of dev support for jtbd.app. And so to make that a little bit simpler, I started adding a little bit of test coverage and done some fixtures in there. Like I haven't had, I've not been doing it the TDD way at all up to this point. And so I want to get some of those things in there. Made some really strong progress on that. Yeah.
Can we go technical for a second here?
Sure.
I mean,
yeah,
sure,
of course.
Do you guys? You're much more experienced in development and Rails than I am. TDD. Are you guys like really adhering to that, like as a process, like writing tests first
I am not. I fully appreciate the value of it. That is not my first foot forward, and I think sometimes to my detriment. Benedict?
Me?
Me? I don't.
So I don't follow it, to be honest. Mostly because it doesn't work for me in that I usually it works great when you know what you're going to build exactly, because then you can write a test for it and then you know how it's going to turn out. But most of the time when I'm starting on working on something new, I'm not entirely sure what we're going after. Mm-hmm. So usually my process is just play around, make a mess, figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And once I've got that part in place, I start writing tests, and then it's like back and forth and getting tests in place and then changing the code, cleaning up the code afterwards, basically.
Yeah, that makes me feel a lot better because I've just always done it backwards, and I felt like that feels more natural. I really love having test coverage on everything, and we do write tests for basically everything that we build, but it's always after. It's always we don't even really go back and forth that much. We basically scope the feature, build the feature, and then as like the last step, write the tests, run the test suite, fix the issues, and then ship it.
Who
what about you,
we,
Benedicte?
Right? Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yes, Benedicte.
No, so it depends a little bit on the project, but a lot of stuff, like if I know that UI, for instance, is going to change a lot, I don't write any tests for that. I will just like test it manually. I'm pretty good at breaking stuff manually. That is like a superpower.
Well, that's the other thing about it is the UI. I mean, we might know exactly what we're going to scope into the feature, like what we're going to build, but ultimately the UI might change, like classes, DOM and stuff might change. So, and almost all of our tests are like, feature tests, integration tests. So like, we don't know what the UI is going to be. So how can we write tests for that up front,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, so I do a little bit of the Benedict approach. I would say like I mess it up, try to or make it work. And then if there's something that is really important that needs to keep working, I will write a test for that. So for POW, my SaaS, there are only really tests for the analytics part of how I analyze the menstrual cycle. And that is mostly because that is brute force, because I have not come up with a very great way of doing that yet. So I just needed to have a lot of tests in place to be sure that what I am attempting to do works. But then when I've done that, now, if I ever get a bug, that's when I write a test on it. So if I find a bug or somebody reports a bug, I write a test to kind of smoke out that bug and then fix it so that it won't come back. That's kind of my approach in the beginning.
Yeah.
But when I was a young consultant, the one of the mentors at the company I worked for was actually Kent Beck, who's the guy behind test-driven development. And in that period, he actually realized himself, because he was starting to work in more startup land, and he did a talk about how TDD doesn't work for the first versions of a product because things are so uncertain. So he was saying something like, when you're getting the plane off the runway, that's not when you do TDD, it's when the plane is in the air, or something was his metaphor. I'll see if I can find that talk.
Yeah,
I feel like he has blessed our choices, since we're still all of us in getting product off the runway.
I mean, I think that's the common thread of what everybody is one of those examples where for a bootstrapped tiny team to try to follow the best practices of an enterprise development team is lunacy. So, Brian, you kept saying we there as you were giving your answers, we do this, who is we right now? What's the structure of the people who are helping you to build ZipMessage?
Yeah, it's really small. Right now it's just me and one full-time developer. And I love that how small we are right now. because we ship really fast, I think. And I'm in the product every day, so I build roughly half of the stuff, and he builds the other, well, probably more than half, because I really handle almost all of the front end stuff, the design, the UI. I do build full stack features that are simpler, like CRUD stuff, but then anything super complex, I hand off to him. He's more of like the back end guy, and we've got a really good rhythm of speccing out features, building them, testing them, shipping them. So it's been fun. So that's that. It's basically me and him every day, and then right now I'm sort of going through like an exploration process of hiring a couple of other people on more of the marketing side. And I've worked with a few different marketing people over the last couple of months to a year, but nobody steady long term. And so right now I'm starting to work on a few different things on the marketing front. So I'm looking for help to execute a lot of this stuff. So one part of it is a website redesign. Usually I design everything there too. Like the current site I designed and everything, but I think this time around I might look for a really strong visual designer to make
on contract, like a one-off sort of engagement, or
probably
do
a
you mean
contract freelancer to work to sort of collaborate with for, I don't know, a month or two. And then there might be more stuff after that, but the main need right now is to redesign the website and get the message and change up the messaging and positioning and use cases and all that. But I would really like a super impressive visual design. And I think I'm pretty good with like layout, but I'm not like a really strong visual, make like a really good first impression website designer. So looking for someone for that. And then I'm also looking for like a content writer / SEO person / email marketer, Twitter writer, like someone to do all those little marketing things that sort of revolve around writing and social media and sending content out, and because I can't really keep that engine turning myself every day. So kind of looking for someone there too.
So you're not a customer of Audience Ups?
Well, I don't own the business anymore, so I don't necessarily have the team like at my disposal to write stuff.
You're not a customer at the yet.
Not at the moment. The thing with Audience Ops is that it's sort of it's a productized service. So you have like a set rhythm of deliverables. Basically, you get articles every week, and that alone is not necessarily the thing I'm much more doing lots of things and experimenting and just looking for someone to work directly with to like kind of execute all those little marketing tasks.
Mm-hmm. So are these people then joining you as owners, or are you employing them, or what is like your strategy?
Yeah, usually
there?
I hire contractors. Usually all over the world. I mean, my developer is in India, and I work with other people, marketers, other designers, developers in the US, in Europe and Canada. Like that has never really mattered to me. I love remote. I love asynchronous. I'm really efficient that way, working with folks. So usually it's a contract thing for either a project or like an ongoing freelance part-time retainer. I've done that quite a bit with marketing folks, where we sort of just agree to some, ideally like a flat monthly fee, monthly retainer, and we're sort of like a little flexible about it to just say like, this is going to cover roughly 2 days of work a week on my stuff, and they'll have other stuff going on, but I usually don't need somebody like 40 hours a week. Developers is a little bit different because I do need my developer 40 hours, but like marketing stuff usually is a little bit more flexible.
Yeah, cool. Do any of you other have any questions about hiring? Because I know Brian has been looking for some help. So do you have any questions?
No, I mean, no, not anything specific. I think it's just, it is what's the word? Like, I guess encouraging, affirming to hear like how you are going about it.
Yeah. And I mean, back in audience ops and continuing through this day under the new owner, that has been the model, is contractors, long-term, steady, part-time contractors. I mean, it had a team of 25 people, and they were all on, some of them stayed on in that capacity for like 5 or 6 years and continuing, just a steady, like solid, whatever, 20 hours a week on average. A lot of them are like stay-at-home parents. A lot of them are freelancers. They get these gigs that come and go, but they want sort of like a steady rock in their week.
An anchor client.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, really good quality work and a fun team to work with on Slack and stuff. And that's always the model that I tend to start with until things grow and maybe it makes sense to go full time.
Did you ever share the numbers behind that? You don't have to share it, obviously, but like the
audience
kind
ops?
of what sort of margins a founder should be looking for if they're spending
that was
X amount per week. And
yeah, audience ops was a productized service. I've never really been super public about the MRR numbers, but
okay, cool.
it got into like the mid upper 5 figures, and I did publish that I sold the business for high 6 figures, it was a team of 25, and yeah, I mean it was profitable. It funded my time mainly, and it was a good sustainable, like for me, a good sustainable cash flow business. But after it almost got up to like 7 years of me running it, so I was sort of ready to move on and really focus on software, which I've been doing, because that's the thing, is like the last 3 or 4 years of running audience ops, like I haven't actually been working in audience ops. Like
you've been a true owner.
Yeah, I mean, I touched that business like 2 hours a month or so in like 5-minute bursts.
Amazing.
Questions coming to my inbox and things like that, and
impressive. And
it really is.
and like even hiring, like the team handled hiring new writers and stuff like that, and I would just sort of like make the final call on bringing someone on and stuff like that, and not to say things didn't break. I mean, usually when things hit my inbox, it's because something went wrong.
Bad, yeah.
But yeah, and I think also for that reason, it was sort of like in a good place to be able to exit, and it's still doing well, it's still growing. So it was in a good spot to be able to hand off to someone else to keep growing it. And ultimately that was also like, I didn't feel, part of me didn't feel right about holding a business in that way, because I'm not giving the team my attention and all of my resources and effort into growing the business. I'm putting that effort into ZipMessage. So, it wasn't, I always felt like it wasn't that fair to the team. And I wanted to find an outcome where they will continue to grow and have really good opportunities. So, yeah.
So on that note, I've always been very impressed about how you've been able to sell most of your projects. I think first time I landed on your like personal site, I was like, wow, all these projects got sold and not just like withered away and like archived like some of us do. So I'm just wondering how your first sale came about.
Well, I definitely have some projects that have just withered away and
sat
in my portfolio with zero revenue. Sure,
sold quite a few.
Like, yeah, a couple. So far I have sold a few for just a couple $1,000, a couple for like low 6 figures, and audience ops so far for me is the biggest one. And I still have a couple like hanging around in my portfolio that I might be looking to sell off to soon. So back in 2015, I sold Restaurant Engine. That was like a low 6-figure exit. And that was in 2015, and I worked with FE International to sell that. So they were the broker on that business. And they were wonderful to work with. Thomas and the team at FEI are really great. I definitely recommend them if you want to go the broker route, for sure. More recently with Audience Ops, it ended up selling to JD Graffam, and JD has been a friend of mine. I've known him, so he was one of the people that I personally reached out to about Audience Ops. But I, as I described on Bootstrapped Web, I did also put Audience Ops up on MicroAcquire at the same time. MicroAcquire is like a newer marketplace for buying and selling, mostly SaaS apps, but they do have other businesses on there. So I put Audience Ops up in like the agencies category. So I had some good conversations and one really good offer from MicroAcquire actually, but I ended up going with JD. Let's see what else.
But you remember like how you thought, like the first time you thought like I don't want to work on this project anymore, or realizing like the first thing you sold, like how did you think like, oh, I can sell this instead of just shutting it down?
Yeah, I mean the first real exit that I had was Restaurant Engine back in 2015, and that was a like a SaaS / service that I bootstrapped from like 2012 to 2015, and it was a website builder for restaurants. The main reason I decided to sell that was just because I mean it wasn't growing crazy, but it was also like I don't love selling to restaurants. Like I don't have a connection to restaurants. I don't want to fly myself out to the restaurant industry conference. I don't want to do things like that. So it was really a learning experience, that whole business. Mm-hmm. I mean, every business is, but especially that one. Yeah, I made some money with it, but it was, I completely went from being a freelance designer to learning how to build like a SaaS business for a specific market. That was, and I really cut my teeth on that business. I forgot how, I might've been talking to Rob Walling, who introduced me to Thomas Smale, founder of FEI, and that was sort of the go-to way to sell a business. Mm-hmm. And they guided that process, and then the process of selling that was a very big learning experience. And then I went through it again with Audience Ops, and it's not easy. Like, you know, people look at these exits like oh, it's a big win at the end, big congratulations, like hurrah, you know. But it's in my experience, I hate it. I don't like it. I like the outcome, but the process to me sucks. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's just, it is not fun. I just, you know, even I said to some friends while I was going through it recently with Audience Ops, like, even when the buyer is great, even when the deal is actually staying on the tracks and it's going well, it's still terrible for me. Like,
why? Like, in what way?
It's just really stressful. And there's multiple stages. So first it's negotiation before, just around the offer. Like, what is the offer? What are going to be the broad strokes terms of the offer? And then you do a letter of intent and LOI. But then from there you get into due diligence, and they're literally opening up everything about the business. They're looking at my bank statements. They're looking at the operations. They're looking at everything. And it's weeks of that. And then it's sort of a negotiation into like what you want to show and what you don't want to show, because the deal is not final yet. It's not even a sure thing that it will complete. So, you know, you don't necessarily want to share things that, like, what if the deal doesn't complete, you know? So there's a lot of that. And then you get into contract negotiations. So lawyers are getting involved, and then they do their sparring over every little word in the contract. And, you know, we like to build stuff and ship products and talk to customers, and this is not that. This is, you know, so it's a combination of like talking to your accountant every day, talking to lawyers every day, getting into all this technical process, government regulations, like bank transfers.
Sounds like doing your taxes every single day for a couple of months.
Basically that. Yep.
Okay, over to something completely different
Yeah.
then. What has been your most fun business or project to date?
I guess it's always the one you're currently working on, right? Like ZipMessage is pretty fun right now. Yeah, I mean, right now and for the last few years, I'm all in on designing and building software products. And I've wanted to do software for a long time. I have been doing software for a long time. I come from a background as a front-end web designer, developer, and then recent years learned Ruby on Rails and went full stack with it. But people know me as like the productized service guy. I built audience ops and talked about productized service. But for me, that was always sort of like a crutch to like have a business that can run predictably while I go try to build some software products. I've been hacking on different software products over the years for many years, and so now that I'm really doing that, and the fact that I can build full stack means that I can collaborate with a developer at a much higher level than I used to. So that's a lot of fun. And I just love the process.
Yeah. ZipMessage seems like Loom, but better. I love Loom. I love using it as like a primary touch point. You have added the ability to have an asynchronous conversation through that sort of experience. Was seeing how well Loom worked like part of the seed for this, or like where did it come about?
Yeah, definitely Loom. I mean, I've been a longtime Loom user, although I did recently cancel my Loom subscription because I used it.
I think I'm going to cancel mine.
But yeah, I mean, that was definitely one of the factors that led me into ZipMessage, was just observing that market. This isn't the only reason I got into it, but one of the factors is identifying a market where there is clear growing activity and interest, and not overwhelmingly competitive. Not to say, I mean, Loom is, they're a huge product and organization. So not looking to, necessarily compete with them directly, but they're sort of like the elephant in the room in this space of like video messaging.
Like the market for remote workers trying to find a way to communicate asynchronously with high fidelity. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Yeah. The big
that's not going anywhere.
Well, the big difference for me is that, I have been a Loom user for a long time, and I was doing customer support for Process Kit, another one of my products. And I would always want to send a link to my customer to ask them to record their screen for me. And then we can go back and forth. And you can't really do that with Loom. You could say like, hey, can you sign up for this tool called Loom and install it and start to use it and then record record a video on QuickTime and put it in a Dropbox link for me or something crazy like that.
Clunky.
That was the idea. That was the original idea for ZipMessage, was be able to do customer support with it. But then what ended up happening was, some people use it for that, but more people use it for asynchronous conversations. That became the thing, like seeing a threaded conversation back and forth, videos, screens, camera, text, attachments, all of that in a threaded conversation. That is also not usually how Loom is used. Loom does have like a reply feature, but I don't think anybody really uses it. And it requires both ends to be Loom users. Right. And the whole idea with ZipMessage is like, it should be frictionless to send a link to like your client or to a freelancer that you're working with or somebody that you might hire or your team. And then just have, I have async conversations on ZipMessage that last like a month. We just go back and forth like 20 times, and it's just, I think it's a really great way to communicate.
So since we're on ZipMessage, we're also like, is there, you asked us about TDD. Is there anything else you would like to get input on? Kind of like, I don't know, mastermind style, since we're all here.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, we can be here all day. You know what I'm curious to hear from you all and anybody listening, to be honest. I discussed earlier how I like to work with contractors, right? And especially when in my experience, when you're hiring a freelancer, there's a lot of freelancers who sort of act like agencies, in that when a client comes to them, they come to the freelancer to do everything, to do the whole thing. Like, hey, I need a website redesign. I want to hire you to just do it all, lead it all, create it, show it to me. I'll give you my feedback, but you do it, you build it. And I'm not necessarily looking to work like that, but I am looking to work with someone. Like I want a more collaborative, because like I'm a solo founder. Like I'm always jealous of Benedict, like you and Jane, like you have a core partners team where you guys can like really hold up like two ends of the business. I don't have that. I'm solo. So anybody I work with, like in the business, on the product, on the website and stuff, like those are people that I hire to work with me. So I'm still, after all these years, I'm still trying to figure out how to find really talented, really skilled people to work in a collaborative way, like still go off and do hours of like deep work, like come up with a mock-up or build a feature, but then come back to me and we'll hash it out, and I'll build part of it, and I'll contribute half of the project, and then I want you to push back on my ideas and stuff like that. I'm still trying to figure that out in development, in design, in marketing, in content, like, yeah. But then like not necessarily bringing someone on as like a full-time salary contributor. Like a lot of these don't require that level of commitment, at least not yet. And, not looking to bring on a business partner right now. It's just looking for really high caliber people to like collaborate with. I'm still trying to figure that out,
I don't know if we have any insight on
Yeah, I wish I had a good answer for that.
But I did see somebody on Twitter, I think she's from Indie Women, made like a job board for founders looking to kind of moonlight with their profession. That could like those kind of people could maybe be the ones you're looking for, because they would also be interested in kind of product and the business and like discussing things, because that would be beneficial then for their startup. So instead of looking for kind of regular freelancers, that would be other founders that then are funding their SaaS by working on somebody else's SaaS that has more funding. But I can't remember if I can find the link. We'll put it in the description, because I can feel like now that I'm working on POW, I'm trying now to fund that through kind of like Gatsby consultancy / training / something, because that is a skill I have that I can sell, and I know there is use for it, or like people need it, so that
that's a great space to be in, like the Jamstack stuff, like that's awesome. Whenever I start a new website, it's all I've abandoned WordPress. Like I just go to Jamstack for sure.
Yeah, so then you can hire me, right? to do your part-time.
Oh, this is turning into a sales pitch.
Yeah, no, but I think that is an interesting approach, because then you find those kind of people. Because I think what often is hard, like if you think of more like the hourly approach, kind of like a lot of the people working as freelancers like that aren't that interested in kind of like the business why, or like why are we doing this, or like what is the business outcome from what we're doing. Like they just want to like do what, like you say with agency, they just want to like do to the spec and like deliver that.
Deliver the thing they were asked of and send the invoice. And I know that minimizes the talent and professionalism a little bit of folks. There's some really great people out there. But that's also why I tend to prefer to structure it in like a flat retainer. You know, I don't like to if they need to bill hourly, that's fine. But generally, I don't really like the hourly billing model. I'd rather it be a little bit more like, let's just agree a couple $1,000s a month, and we're working together for like 2 or 3 days a week, roughly. You know, and like whatever, like whatever we need to work on, that's when we fit it in, and that's worked well at times. But you know, it's just about finding like the right person to have that work relationship with, you know.
I think the reason that's so hard to find and so hard to get right is that, and I mean, speaking as someone who's freelanced for years now, is that, you know, the value for the business owner to outsource something is that it's less expensive than a full-time employee, or maybe we're not ready for a full-time employee. And so it's like, it's a budget consideration for the freelancer. There's no skin. I don't have any skin in the game for your business. And so there's just this natural ceiling of, I'm going to bring my best foot forward, and I'm going to like deliver the best that I can and try as much as I can to like have a sense of ownership and a desire for that.
Yeah.
You know,
you're
but
right.
ultimately,
that's definitely
my
one of the dilemmas.
My business ought to be and is the priority.
Yeah.
You know, and so especially like even on it's amazing that you prefer retainers, because all freelancers, I think anyway, prefer retainer over hourly. It's a much better way to work.
Yeah. For sure.
But there's still just like that. There's a fundamental misalignment in terms of ownership and upside skin in the game.
I do think that freelancers in general should be more open to that idea of offering themselves as a retainer. Truly, if you're like an independent person, because there's forever we've heard like people sort of educating freelancers on how to bill your rate, how to raise your rate, how to charge and structure and all that, and like get invoices paid and stuff like that. And of course there's terrible clients out there. You know, I don't think that I'm one of them. But like, I think when you get to a certain point in your, cause I have worked with some really talented freelancers in this sort of retainer capacity, where they're like, they've been around a few years. They know what types of clients are really great to work with, and they just seek them out. And if they can stack on a couple of those on a retainer basis, you know. But you're right, Brian. I mean, there is still that dilemma of like, well, they're not really totally incentivized, and it's not, and maybe if they were in like a full-time salary employment position, there could be like growth opportunities in the company and things like that. But you know, we're bootstrapping a SaaS from the ground up, and that's not always viable, you know?
Yeah.
I also have a feeling that those people know that they're worth a lot, basically, and then it sometimes, I mean, there are certainly people out there that do a lot of collaboration and stuff like that, but I feel like the more they are collaborating and the more they are basically sharing their knowledge without just executing on something you tell them to, I think it gets really expensive really fast, and then maybe it's even out of budget for some of our small higher contractor tiny SaaS products, whatever. So that might be also a problem there.
I also think,
what are you all working on these days? What's new? Can we mastermind on your stuff?
You want to talk more about our stuff? We do have a question from Twitter though, and then we can talk more about our stuff. What is one thing in any of our businesses that you wish you'd done sooner? This is coming from Daniel Motsoris on Twitter.
It's a great question.
Let's see. I wish I had a good answer for that. Well, for me personally, definitely the learning full stack development. I waited way too long to do that. Because I come from a background as a designer and front end person. So I started my career in HTML, CSS, taking a PSD and getting it to work in IE6. Like that's how old I am in this industry. And that was my first job. And that gave me like the identity of like, I'm a front end guy. And I got more and more into the design side of things over the years. But then it wasn't until 2018, well into my career, like over 10 years into this career, where I decided like, you know what, I could stop being afraid of using the terminal and databases and learn full stack. And I chose to learn Ruby on Rails. That was the best decision. It was hard. Like I spent basically the year of 2018 spending like full-time hours. Audience Hops was running. I paused some projects where I was like outsourcing the development. And I got frustrated with that. So I was like, I need to be able to take an idea and execute it full stack, start to finish, and ship it myself. And so I spent that year doing courses, books, working with mentors and friends, and learning to build in Rails. And then by the end of the year, I was able to ship a tiny SaaS, and I've done a couple of them since. And I love learning, and I'm still not, miles and miles behind you guys in terms of being able to as a developer or an engineer, and I'm still learning, but it's been really fun to understand how it all fits together. Because I could build basically any feature just really slowly and probably poorly, but it really enables me to collaborate with developers much better, than I did before. So
it's been impressive to watch you grow over the last 3 years or so, because I remember you announced that you're going to start backend developing, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a big challenge." But it was nice to see you launch tiny product after tiny product, and with every iteration be more ambitious. And now you're building ZipMessage, where like I wouldn't know how to start without some research. So
I think
it's pretty impressive to see your progress there.
It's been fun. I mean, Stack Overflow's traffic, like half of it must be me. So.
Yeah, I heard something. I just, you were asking what we were doing. I just managed to finally send out like feedback requests for my summer functions program, where I taught front-end developers how to create serverless functions using Gatsby. And I think one of, or what shone through was that a lot of them were saying that seeing me make mistakes and then fixing the mistakes live, like gave them the confidence to go ahead and try themselves. So that whole like thing where I think when you're like a beginner, you think that nobody else Googles or nobody else like goes to Stack Overflow or whatever, but it's what we all do.
Everybody does.
I just feel like I can like sift through. When I do a search, I can sift through and find like the nugget I need faster than I could, a couple of years back. And but it's still what I do a lot of the times because there's so much new stuff all the time. Like you can't have it all in your head. You need to be able to research and look for answers. So, but that was really nice feedback to get, that they kind of like, they got the courage that they could also go out and try to make back-end stuff, I guess, which is like...
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've always been a big believer in learning by building, learning by doing, and breaking stuff and running into the problem 3 or 4 times until it finally clicks,
I think what's interesting about your answer on that is, I mean, for you specifically, it was Rails, it was back-end development. But abstractly, it was identifying where in this chain of concept to development to deployment to selling are you like fundamentally unable to complete it, and then you patched that gap. It makes me feel like I'm just sitting here thinking through, okay, where's JTBD.app really falling off? And it's like in marketing communications. Like if I were to give your answer to me, it is, I don't really know how to market. I don't.
Well,
I'm not-
the funny thing is, the more I learned development, I think the worse I became at marketing.
That is a little encouraging to hear, though.
I actually think that that's true. Because I think
Why?
because of
Why
the-
though?
Yeah.
years ago, like when I was starting up audience ops and when I was launching the productized course, so we're talking about like 2014, 15, 16, I was fully front end designer and like business builder person. So I dove into the marketing side of things, and I was trying SaaS. Back then, I was trying to build a SaaS called Ops Calendar, which I spent a lot of money on outsourcing development and ultimately failed and shut it down. And that was, and anyway, like back then, like I felt like I was pretty good with like content marketing and social media and different stuff like that. But now, like I have the experience of like hacking with SEO and content and ads here and there and things like that. But I don't enjoy it. Like now I just, like I said, I really love the software building process and I love the idea of talking to customers. I still enjoy that side of it. And I don't consider myself a salesperson, but I do love having calls with customers and learning from them. So like the customer development and product building to fill those customer needs. I love that loop. But then all the other stuff of like analyzing SEO, keyword research opportunities and Google Analytics and funnels and pay-per-click and whatever else, and then like tracking it over months. And I just can't keep it. I can't stay consistent with that kind of stuff. And I don't get energy from that, doing that day to day. You know, it's like, so that's where today I've learned like, okay, I do need to outsource that stuff because it's not fun for me. I'm really not very good at it. There are people who do live and breathe that kind of marketing work. So if I can just collaborate with them and then they handle most of the legwork, that's the ideal, so that I could focus on the product. Yeah. So like,
So do you feel like
I used to like 5-10 years ago, I was doing it all, like always trying to do it all, and now I've dabbled in everything, and I know enough where it's like, I just don't, there's a bunch of stuff I just don't want to be doing. So I need to be able to hire people for that.
But do you think that's because you become a backend developer or just because you are older and wiser and want to focus more?
Probably both.
Don't get into backend, folks. You'll stop marketing. I'm just kidding.
I'm wondering if it's related to the quicker feedback loop that you get from, I mean, what you're saying there is basically talking to customers, hearing about their problems, building a solution for that, and getting the reaffirmation that this is the right thing, it solves it, make them happy. That's a very tight feedback loop that you can execute on very quickly within days or weeks, whereas the SEO and marketing in general, it always feels like you do something and then maybe half a year later you know that it didn't work or did work.
Yeah.
So
exactly right. I mean, that to me is the most frustrating thing about marketing, is that there isn't instant feedback. And marketing is harder than ever. There isn't the build this thing and loads of traffic and trials will come in the door next month. Like it's not that anymore. It's you literally just have to stack up lots and lots of different activities, and ultimately the thing grows. Like that's sort of how it works, I think.
That's in one part reassuring and making me feel better, but also making me feel worse because there's obviously not a silver bullet there.
Yeah.
Just keep stacking.
Keep stacking. Slow and steady. You know, keep
Yeah,
at
there
it.
you go.
Slow and steady.
You guys nailed the branding, you know?
Nail the branding there, yes. And I think that's it for today. That's what we have time for. Any parting comments? Or comment?
Well, I'm a fan of all of you, and I love following along. I love podcasts like this to hear what people are working on. I always think it's like boring to most of the world, but to us, like this is the fuel to just hear what we're working on,
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Big fan of your work, and keep doing what you're doing. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thanks, folks.
Absolutely. See you or hear you next week. I don't know what we say. Anyway, until next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.